Good morning and welcome to the deep dive for April 17th, 2025.
Morning.
You shared a fascinating collection of material covering the current buzz in the TCG world. We've got Pokemon, Lorcana, Magic, The Gathering, and One Piece.
Yeah, a really good mix today.
So our mission today is basically to cut through the noise, pull out the key developments, the insights, keep you informed without drowning you in details.
Exactly. We've sifted through articles, forum threads, even some early, card opening videos.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just to give you a streamlined understanding of what's actually happening.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on everything we discussed, too, so please feel free to share your comments below.
Definitely. So we'll be looking at the ripples after that big Pokemon Go sale.
Right.
Diving into the roller coaster of the new Pokemon Destined Rivals set. Checking out some, pretty intriguing One Piece TCG investment data.
Huh?
And just briefly touching base on the latest for Magic. The Gathering.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let's unpack this, starting with Pokemon. There's been some news around Niantic, right? The company behind Pokemon Go.
That's the one. Massive success, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, they apparently sold the game for a staggering $3.5 billion, but now they're laying off 68 employees.
Yeah, 68 people.
Yeah.
And it's the timing that's really sparked the conversation.
I bet. The key takeaway here for listeners might just be to consider the often precarious nature of things, even for these wildly successful ventures in tech and gaming.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is the immediate online reaction. You see a lot of users questioning the ethics, layoffs right after this huge financial event. Some are even asking, could a slightly lower sale price have saved those jobs?
Yeah.
It kind of taps into that broader discussion about job security in the gaming industry, which could be pretty volatile.
Right. It really brings up questions about how success and profit are managed and, the human cost involved sometimes. Okay, so moving on to the Pokemon TCG itself, the new Destined Rivals set, that seems to be quite the talking point.
Oh, yeah. The initial hype was intense. Pre-order prices for booster boxes went, sky high.
What are we talking?
They're talking $400, even $500 at one point. Now those prices are plummeting down to around $300.
Wow, quite a drop.
And even the regular Elite Trainer boxes, the ETBs, they saw prices over $150 initially, which is way above normal.
So this price correction is pretty interesting then.
It is. And despite that drop, the general feeling seems to be that Destined Rivals is actually, a pretty good quality set. People expect it to be fun to play, fun to collect.
Okay.
It just couldn't live up to that extreme initial hype.
Right, the FOMO effect.
Exactly. The insight here is probably, be wary of that fear of missing out. Always try to assess the actual content, the long-term potential, not just the initial buzz.
Definitely good advice. So what's actually in the set that's got people talking, even with the price frenzy cooling down?
Well, Destined Rivals has a really strong nostalgic pull. It focuses heavily on Team Rocket.
Ah, okay. Classic.
Yeah, so collectors will find cards featuring Giovanni, of course, but also other team members like Archer, Ariana, Petrol, Proton, even the classic Team Rocket Grunts.
Nice. Any specific big cards?
Key cards people are mentioning include a Mewtwo Hyper Rare. That's one of those super flashy, hard-to-pull versions. There's a card called Rocket Adina and Rocket's Mewtwo X as a special rare. Plus, there's excitement for Garchomp and Cynthia cards and just the whole Team Rocket look and feel.
Oh, Team Rocket nostalgia. Yeah, that always resonates. But I thought I saw something about some disappointment, too.
You did. Some fans were really hoping for full art trainer cards featuring Jesse and James, the iconic duo from the anime.
Ah, yeah.
And those didn't end up in the set. But looking at it more broadly, some are calling Destined Rivals maybe the best trainer Pokemon set out of the three in this current block.
Better than Journey Together and Battle Partners.
That's the comparison some are making, yeah.
Interesting. And this might tie into shifts in pull rates we're seeing, right? How often you get the really rare stuff.
Exactly. There's data suggesting that the pull rates for the special illustration rares, those, fancy full art cards everyone wants,
Yeah.
were actually higher in the earlier Scarlet and Violet sets, like the base set, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames. Compared to Journey Together, those rates seem to have been higher, which could mean they've deliberately tweaked the rarity for these chase cards in the newer sets.
Okay. So beyond this specific set, what about the broader market trends in Pokemon TCG? What should we be aware of?
Well, linking this to the bigger picture, there's this ongoing discussion that the Pokemon TCG market is maybe normalizing a bit after that huge growth spurt.
Right, things calming down.
Yeah, so price drops in sets like Journey Together,
Hmm.
which might seem worrying to some, are actually seen by many as just, normal market fluctuations.
Yeah.
And the current Scarlet and Violet generation is expected to be longer than previous ones.
Oh, really? Longer?
That's the expectation. So attention will likely shift towards the later sets.
Yeah.
Maybe SV6, 7, 8 down the line.
That makes sense. A longer generation means a different release focus. So what about the older Scarlet and Violet sets then? Will we see those again? Reprints?
Highly probable. The expectation is that older SV sets will get reprinted. Kind of like how in the Sword and Shield era, the focus eventually shifted to reprinting later hits like Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance,
Yeah.
Silver Tempest.
Gotcha.
And on a related note, prices for the Stellar Crown set are apparently crashing right now.
Oh.
Yeah, which could make singles from that set pretty good buys, actually, even if sealed stuff is still harder to find. The illustration rares from Stellar Crown have seen some really significant drops.
Okay, good tip. And what about 151? That set was huge. Any news there?
Yes, actually. Big development. The 151 booster bundles saw a massive price drop on the official Pokemon Center website.
Really?
Yeah, and that could definitely put some downward pressure on the single card prices from 151. What's interesting, though, is while they seem to be pushing these booster bundles, there's some speculation that the ETBs and maybe the booster boxes for 151 might be treated more like collector's items now. Maybe fewer reprints in those specific formats.
So shifting how they manage availability for different product types. Interesting. Okay, switching gears slightly. There's always that vintage versus modern TCG debate. Any insights from the sources there?
Yeah, this was interesting. The perspective offered was that often the percentage gains you see in modern sealed Pokemon TCG can actually be better than in vintage.
Oh, okay. That's counterintuitive for some, maybe.
It can be, but, and this is a big but, the vintage market can be way less liquid. It might be harder to actually sell that stuff quickly.
Right, finding a buyer.
Exactly. And there's also a higher risk of tampering or resealing with vintage products compared to modern. That's definitely something to keep in mind if you're thinking about investing.
That's a crucial point. Risk versus reward. And of course, no TCG market chat is complete without mentioning scalpers.
Yeah, absolutely. They continue to be a significant issue, really impacting product availability, driving up prices.
The usual story.
Pretty much. And there are even concerns being voiced about distributors maybe holding back stock themselves to potentially sell it at higher prices through their own side channels, which obviously just makes fair market access even harder for regular buyers in stores.
Not great.
Not great at all. Reprints are often seen as the way to fight scalpers, but like we talked about, reprints can also affect the value of stuff people are already holding. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, tricky stuff. Okay, so we've navigated the Pokemon roller coaster. Let's switch over to a TCG that's been generating buzz for different reasons. One Piece. You mentioned there's some interesting data on graded cards.
Yes, this was quite revealing. Looking at PSA graded English One Piece cards, the numbers for some really sought-after cards are surprisingly low.
Low population counts.
Exactly. And that directly feeds into their high market values. Take the first set, OP1 Romance Dawn. Out of just over 1,000 graded copies, over 90% got a PSA 10.
Wow, 90%. That's incredibly high for a TCG.
It really is. Shows the quality control or maybe just how carefully people handled those early cards.
So what about the really big chase cards, the manga rares?
Right, so the data on the Gold Roger manga rare from OP9 is particularly striking. It's currently seen as the most expensive pullable card in the game.
And the graded BOP?
Only 136 graded copies exist in total, according to this data. And of those, 120 are PSA 10s.
120 10s out of 136 total. That's insane scarcity.
It is. To put it in perspective, that's significantly rarer in high grade than, say, a base set Charizard PSA 10.
Wow.
So the crucial insight here for collectors or investors is just how much that rarity, especially in top grade, impacts the long-term value.
Yeah, that really highlights the potential there. Any other notable manga cards driving interest?
Yep, manga versions of characters like Luffy and Shanks are also hot items, commanding high prices.
Okay. And what about sets rotating out or staying in play? How does that affect value?
Good question. Older sets like OP1 Romance Dawn are likely out of tournament rotation now, or soon will be.
Meaning prices might go up for collectors.
That's the general expectation, yeah. Then you have OP5, which is still in rotation, but could climb in value if it doesn't get reprinted heavily. OP9, being newer, is expected to stay legal for play longer and probably see more print runs.
That's really valuable info for tracking potential investments. Any sets maybe underperforming expectations?
Interestingly, yes. It seems prices for Royal Blood, which is OP4, are dropping. Apparently, demand was lower than expected.
So retailers might have stock.
It sounds like it, yeah. Retailers seem to have a decent amount of OP4 available.
Okay, good to know. All right, let's take that quick detour into Magic, the Gathering. The new set Tarkir Dragon Storm just dropped. What's the initial chatter?
The main buzz seems to be around its impact on the standard format, as you'd expect.
Any early top decks emerging?
One deck archetype getting highlighted is called Domain Overlords. Apparently, it's looking strong, especially against decks that aren't packing a lot of red mana strategies.
Okay.
But mostly, it's just general excitement around the new cards, how they'll shake up Standard, and of course, Commander too.
Sounds about right for a new Magic release. No, unfortunately, the sources didn't have any specific updates on Lorcana this time around.
That's correct. Still a popular game for sure, but just nothing new popped up in the specific materials we reviewed for today's deep dive.
Gotcha. So wrapping things up, as you can see, you really tapped into a dynamic moment across the TCG world here.
For sure. We've covered the complexities after that huge Niantic sale.
Right, the business side.
The whole push and pull of hype versus market reality with Pokemon's Destined Rivals.
That price correction was something.
Then that fascinating rarity data in One Piece.
Yeah.
The constant evolution of the Magic meta.
Yeah, the Destined Rivals set in Pokemon definitely seems like a key thing to watch. That Team Rocket theme hitting a market that's maybe cooling off a bit.
It presents a really nuanced situation for players and collectors, doesn't it? Opportunities, maybe, but also things to consider carefully.
Absolutely. And that One Piece data, I mean, the scarcity of those high-grade cards really does underscore its potential as a collectible and maybe an investment.
No kidding. The numbers are pretty stark.
Well, thank you for staying with us through this deep dive. And hey, don't forget to check out 151Collectables.com for all your TCG needs.
Yeah, good stuff over there.
We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts on everything we've covered today. The Destined Rivals prices, the One Piece rarity, Niantic? Let us know. Please share your comments below.